Hey everybody, what's up? This is Mr. Hancock. This video is a little bit more in-depth explanation and lecturing, I guess, over the Comp 1 narrative essay. So this, I'm going to be using my HyFlex 14A section for an example, but this video will apply for my 31A as well as the online Comp 1, which is W64. So here we are. Or 64W. Regardless, this will work for all of my fall 2020 Comp 1 classes. So let's get into it. I've already posted a general video over the narrative essay assignment itself, but I want to take time in this video to go directly over exactly like what it is we're going to do as far as outlining, putting this together, and moving this into a draft. So the two handouts that I'm going to be looking at here in week 1 are going to be the sample outline, as well as the introductions and conclusions, or excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm mixing this all up. It's going to be the sample outline and the narrative essay example. But first, I want to go ahead and open up the assignment sheet again. All right, so again, don't forget your due dates. Next week, week 2, that's when your thesis and outline will be due, so I want to make sure that we all take time to talk about how we're going to put the outline together and how you're going to submit it and everything like that. So, looking here again, going over this again, you have to pick one of these 4 topics, okay? Sometimes I'll have students that will write on something completely wild and wonky, and that's nothing in the topics. That's because they clearly never went and read the assignment sheet or watched the videos, and they never asked for help. And so you want to make sure you follow in this area, because what some students will end up doing is they'll skip the outline, they'll skip the rough draft or something, and they'll just go, or even they'll do the outline, but it's something completely off topic. And the number one thing I'm going to come back and say is this is not, you're going to have to redo this because you're not following the directions. So please make sure that you follow the directions and pick a correct topic right off the bat, okay? Of course, you can go anywhere you want to in these topics, but it must be inside of one of these 4 topics. And I believe anybody in the world can read these topics and find a story in your life that will fit. I mean, everybody's had an embarrassing moment, you know, so you can at least do that. Now, with that being said, I want to go back down here. And I'm going to write on the bottom of this here for just a second. Let's get rid of this just for a moment here, for example's sake. You have a priority list. I say personally, when I would start writing this paper, I would have a priority list. And so, on what to do. So number 1, my priority list is pick my story and purpose, which will turn into your thesis statement. All right. Then number 2, we want to outline, which this is going to be planning the essay structure and story breakdown. And 3, you want a rough draft. This is the first time in essay format. Then you proof it, everything like that, and then you'll move directly into the final draft. Now, when you come to rough draft time, I always say that what matters first is going to be your the thesis. It's not going to work good for me, is it? Just go back this here. It's all right. I'll just keep it up here. Thesis. Then you've got the body. Then C, the intro and conclusion. So you'll notice, and I want to mention this, that you'll notice that me focusing on the introduction and conclusion when I go to draft this is not anywhere close to the top of my list of things I need to get done. It's going to be at the very, very end. I'm not worrying about it right now. So when it comes to outlining for the introduction and conclusion, I'm pretty much just sticking my thesis in that spot. I'm not worried about writing that. A lot of students will break their brains right out of the gate trying to write an introduction. In my opinion, you can't do that just yet. You're not ready to write the full introduction. The thesis statement will hold the place for the introduction. You're going to pretty much put your whole body together, nearly write your whole body first, and then you'll be ready for the intro and the conclusion. So anyway, you'll see that's very, very last on my list, and then I'll go into having my final draft ready, okay? That's my personal priority list and what I recommend for my students when it comes to writing. So, with everything there being said, let's talk about starting at the beginning. The first thing you have to do is you have to pick a story and you have to have a purpose, okay? And that's what you're going to be working on. I talked about this in the last paper. You need to have, and it's also in your week 1 discussion, you're telling what you're going to choose, preliminary, story, and purpose. In other words, you can change at any point. If you get so far into it, realize you need to change it, you can. So, what's your story and what's the purpose? And to get that, look at the purpose here. Why am I telling us? What do I hope the reader to get from it? What is the big lesson for everybody, okay? Not everybody has experienced what I've experienced, but they can still learn from this lesson and apply this lesson to their lives. So it needs to be bigger in that sense, okay? So what you want to do is get those two things together, then put them together into one thesis. I've talked about this already in the last paper. So with that being said, to show you a sample thesis, because once you get those two, you put it in one sentence, and there's your thesis. Let me show you a sample thesis here. Here's a sample outline. I'll go deeper into this in a minute, but just look at this, and let's talk about this for a minute. I already went over this in the last paper, but still. On the day my mother slapped my face in front of the family at the 2014 Hancock family reunion, I learned to always respect others, especially my elders. So, I'm not asking you to look at it and love it. I'm not asking you to look at it and tell me it's a perfect thesis, because I think it could be better. It doesn't matter. It accomplishes, for right now, starting off, the first thing we're doing in our planning stage here, this works absolutely fine. You have the two things in there. What is my story? So the reader is going to demand of me, the author, the person writing this, the reader is going to look at me and demand, what story are you telling me? It's clear. I'm going to tell you the story about the time I got slapped in the face by mother at a family reunion, which I've been slapped plenty of times by my mother, but not at a family reunion. But so there's a story. You know as a reader, all right, that's what I'm getting. I'm getting no more, no less. Everything they're going to tell me in this story is going to focus on getting my face slapped at that one particular event, okay? And I tell students to watch out, because I've had people in the past try to write papers about, like my whole 4 years of high school, how I grew to be an independent person. That's a season of life. That's not an event. If you pick something like that, you need to find the one thing that happened during high school that really transitioned it over, that pinnacle, that climax of the whole story, okay? So it needs to be a manageable event for this type of paper, something focused. And then what's the lesson? The reader's going to say, okay, you're going to tell me that. So what? What am I supposed to learn from this? Respect others, especially elders. You see, it may be a cliche lesson, but it doesn't matter right now. For example, there it is, okay? It's a broader lesson. Doesn't matter if you've ever been to a family reunion. Doesn't matter if you've ever had your face slapped in front of people. Doesn't matter. What matters is that from this story, you can tell the lesson that will relate to anybody is to respect others. That's what we want to do right there, okay, y'all? So once you get that, flip back over here for just a second. Once you get that, you're ready to start outlining and planning the essay structure. There we go. And the story breakdown. In other words, where are we going to break this down into paragraphs, okay? Going back to our other thing we talked about in last video, we have our typical essay structure. You have an introduction here. I'll color code these two. And here's my conclusion. All right? Bam. Now, here's my body paragraph 1. We'll change the color on that to like a nice green. Here's my body paragraph 2, which is a nice green. Body paragraph 3, which is a nice green. And again, body paragraph 4. You're going to need more than 3 body paragraphs. At least 4 to 5. Now, notice this one, though, is a little bit different. I'm going to talk about that in just a second here. Now, I'm coloring that in a little blue. Okay, so notice that. Introduction, conclusion, and it's almost like a burger or a sandwich. I say you got your buns, the yellow are your buns, and the meat. What really matters is in the middle, the body. So your introduction does what it says. It introduces the background, the time frame, the location, whatever you want, but it mainly sets the reader up to understand what story they're about to get told and what lesson they're going to get from it. So for now, thesis in that spot works fine. Then, body paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, that's your story. That is you actually going through the chronological point A to point B story in a time sequence. That's what we want, okay? It's going to be focused. It's not going to be focused on irrelevant details. You may get excited about something in the story. Don't fall into that trap. Focus just on what your thesis says. Your thesis is the contract to not only to the reader, but to yourself. It says, this is the only thing I'm going to tell, no more, no less. So if it goes in and has absolutely nothing about that climax of the story getting to your lesson, don't put it in there. It may be awesome information, but don't put it in there right now, okay? All right. So the big question is what do I put in and how do I break it into 4 body paragraphs? There are a few ways of doing this. Mainly here what you want to think about is, think about your transitions. Tell your story. You know the story better than anybody, so tell the story out loud. And notice to yourself where you feel like you have the minor changes, the minor events that switch in the story. So you'll notice here, paragraph 1 is all about the setting. Getting to the place, sitting at the table, and noticing what I really wanted to eat and where it was. It kind of sets the stage for the story. Paragraph 2 sets up to why I got smart mouth with my mother, what was going on. And number 3, that's about what's happening. That's the climax. It's me getting smart in front of everybody to my mother and getting slapped in the face. There it is. Then the final body paragraph, excuse me, is what we call the reflection. Now this is where you develop, because you could tell the story all day, and the reader, you have to imagine that the reader just doesn't get it. And the reader could sit back and say, okay, but what does that have to do with learning not to be smart or not to, with your elders, be respectful to elders? It's pretty clear, but don't imagine your reader thinks it's clear. Your reader still wants you to explain it in clear English what that has to do with, getting smart, learning and respecting elders. So that reflection is you showing your reader. It's almost like internal thought, showing your reader. Take us on that journey with you as if we're there going through that lesson together. And explain how you went from being frustrated and smart to learning in the process, in the moment of that lesson, how that lesson came to be in your head and how you apply it beyond. And so that's really what we want to see there. Now, some people will use the entire 4 body paragraphs there. And in these entire 4 body paragraphs, they will go directly into the story, except they will reflect and give like internal emotional thought as the paragraphs go in each one of the paragraphs. That's up to you too, okay? So anyway, there's your outline. Read that, study that. Your outline does not have to look like this. Everybody can outline their own way, but understand, and this is what's big, this is what dings a lot of people. An outline is not a draft. It is not paragraphs. You'll notice here that each point, even I would say that's too much. I would say a sentence or 2 for each, but really you need to think in terms of words and phrases for each bulleted point, for each point. So it's almost like a to-do list for the day. First, I'm going to do this. Then, I'm going to do this. After I'm done with that, I do this. You're making a to-do list for yourself so that when you go to sit down and do the rough draft, it's going to be super, super easy, okay? Super easy. And so, because I don't skip this. I have a lot of students that think this is so easy, they don't need the outline, they'll skip it, they'll go to the rough draft. The problem with that is, yeah, you may be able to do that right now, but the point is in this unit is to learn to go through this writing process, because when you come to the next paper and the next paper and so on, you're going to need an outline or you're going to get yourself in bad shape. So get in the groove of doing it now and do it now, okay? I also have a lot of students that will skip this and go straight to the rough draft and spend like a few hours writing a big rough draft, and then just to find out that they did it completely wrong and they have to start over. And that's when you have students not wanting to do it, wanting to quit, wanting to take Fs. We don't want to put ourselves in that position. The outline will help you work out your kinks and catch those major problems before you devote hours of writing time into your paper, okay? So there's that. I just have about a minute left, so I'm going to show you something. I'm not going to go super deep into it, but the narrative essay example is where you want to look after you do your outline, or even while you're doing your outline. And this is something I wrote. Obviously, this didn't happen to me. I made it up. Locations and stuff are actually true. It's real stuff. But looking here, this shows you what you're needing for your narrative essay. Not only is it in correct MLA formatting, we'll have more on that later, you can see here how an outline was turned into an introduction with a thesis, how the story paragraphs progress, and how the conclusion wraps it up. This is obviously a way shorter paper with only 3 body paragraphs, but you still get the point, okay? So take a look at this and study this, and we can take some more time going deeper into this. But there you are. If you have any questions, y'all, please let me know and try to have fun with this. It's your story, all right?